everybody on my who's watching this on YouTube or social media or whatever. This is Roger Heighton. He is the local San Mateo County, and actually you can do business pretty much anywhere in California.
That's correct, Joe. I'm actually licensed throughout the entire state of California as a licensed agent and broker. And I obviously, probably like you, tend to specialize in the Bay Area because it's my home turf. But if somebody's buying a home anywhere in the state, we can definitely help them out.
Perfect. Okay, so Roger Heighton, located physically, office in Burlingame, Mid-Peninsula, works a lot in the Mid-Peninsula, San Mateo County, insurance agent with farmers. That's and also a buddy of mine, and also my personal insurance agent for my home, car, and all of my stuff as well. And also somebody I refer a lot to my clients who need homeowners insurance and any other kind of insurance that you are able to give. So I wanted to have you on here and create a quick update video because it's been a little bit of time since we did one of these. It might have been, since the beginning of the pandemic is probably the last time we did one of these. And we talked about last time kind of, what changes happened. Well, now we're, it looks like on the tail end of things and things have opened up quite a bit since we had that conversation. But just wanted to get a quick update from you on, what is happening in the insurance world as it relates to home ownership, and see if and you and I just chatted briefly and we got a couple of topics that we have to talk about. So I would love for you to take it away and just kind of tell us what's going on in the insurance world.
Sure. Well, let me throw them out there, Joe, and you can jump in with any questions that you might have that you'd like to clarify for your clients. One of the things that I've noticed, especially over the last year, and home buyers have probably noticed, is that if they're purchasing in what the insurance world calls higher fire risk areas, the insurance market has gotten very tight there in the sense that many of the major insurers are not even offering insurance in those areas. And so we're having to go to secondary markets. And at the moment, we're still able to find insurance for most people. It's just that the cost may be more than they had anticipated or their lender had anticipated when they were budgeting, for their mortgage and expenses. And even in the Bay Area, which we might not think of as a high fire risk area, there are many areas that can cause concern, such as Woodside, certain areas of Woodside, certain areas of Portola Valley, certain areas of Hillsborough as we get up in the hills, over in the Berkeley, Oakland Hills areas, and Orinda on the other side. So my advice to you and your clients is that if they are looking at a home there, unless it's on the flats of San Mateo or Redwood City, they should reach out to their insurance agent and just get a read on that address and whether it might be an issue that they should be concerned about. And of course, if they want, they can always ask you. And as a courtesy, Joe, I'm always happy to get that information to you also, just to help your clients out.
Okay, perfect. So let's pause there for a second, and so that I can kind of backtrack a little bit and expand on that.
Sure.
For people who maybe have not bought a home yet or just kind of starting their search. So what Roger is talking about, what you're talking about, is high fire risk zone. So first of all, most homes that are for sale, most properties that are for sale in our area have what's called a natural hazard disclosure of some sort. Okay. There's many companies that provide this disclosure, but it's a mapped out disclosure document that kind of maps out if you are in any kind of a natural hazard zone. And so there are, a lot of, like you mentioned, the flats of San Mateo, a lot of the flats of San Mateo and other, not a lot, but there are several, are in a flood zone, correct, which requires flood insurance. Lenders require flood insurance in order to loan on the property. Right. And so a little bit less common, but still common enough where, it's worth talking about in the peninsula and to a much lesser extent, San Francisco, where I also do business, but Santa Clara County, San Francisco, the East Bay, and of course, North Bay. there are a lot of areas that are in this high fire risk, or I believe it's called a high fire risk severity zone. I believe that's what it is, but I'll double check next time. But basically, it's mapped out. It is recognized as a high fire risk zone, and lenders require fire insurance or a special insurance against this. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would gather that that's probably exacerbated this kind of issue with having to go to the secondary market is exacerbated a little bit by all of the wildfires that have been happening over the last several years in California.
Yeah, that's actually, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's just the fact that the state has almost burned down for the last 4 years in a row. Insurance companies across the board, our job is to pay claims for these things. That's what people buy home insurance for. There's no question about it. But the severity of the losses has just been so catastrophic and much greater than insurance companies had anticipated, that it's created rate increases for homeowners across the state, and two, for people buying new home insurance or buying new homes, it's created increased costs, and it's also, as you've noted, certain areas that are more prone to fire risk. It's made it sometimes more difficult to acquire insurance in those areas. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So as Roger suggested, and one of the steps that we take when we're working with clients is that whether, there's a potential that it's in a flood zone or in a high fire risk zone, or sometimes it might even be on the border or close to that zone, but not officially in that zone. I still, a few things that we do before we write an offer, because in our area, it's very common to have all these things in disclosure packages before we even submit an offer, is I look through these documents and I encourage my clients to reach out to their insurer. In fact, I kind of more than encourage, I say we have to do this, to reach out to their insurance provider, or I have them talk to you to run the address, see if they're, what the rates are, talk to the lender and see if that's a requirement, and just, know all that information ahead of time before getting an offer accepted, and then realizing, oh, wait, I'm going to have to pay an additional $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year or whatever it is. I didn't know that. I didn't anticipate that. I thought homeowners insurance should be $2,000 a year or whatever it is.
And not to make you feel good, but Joe, that's why you're a good realtor, and why I think you do such a fantastic job for your clients, because everybody kind of knows a realtor out there, somebody that sells homes, but it's better agents like yourself that are aware of these issues and bring them up to your clients so that they're not, hoodwinked at the last minute when they're trying to close on the home, and all of a sudden they're finding out they cannot get insurance, or they're finding out that, who they thought they were going to do their insurance with wouldn't write the policy. You're giving this information ahead of time. And that's why, again, I think you bring so much value to your clients. So, kudos to you for raising these issues.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I just tell clients and people when we start working together that, this isn't rocket science. We deal with a lot of very intelligent, sophisticated people, engineers, and people who are, changing the world in a lot of ways. Right. And in biotech and tech and all these ways. And, I tell them this is not, if everything as it relates to your job, you'll see there's nothing complicated about this, but there's a lot of details, thousands of little details that you have to remember and think about. And so, I feel that we just do a good job of having our checklists and systems and things that we remember to just, make sure that we keep in mind so that, we protect our clients and, they're in good shape and there's no surprises. That's the main thing, is that there's no surprises. After you get your offer accepted, there's no big, oh, wow, now it's another $600 a month for some other thing, and so just want to make sure people are protected in that way. Yeah. Well, great. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
And so, going on, unless you had any other questions on that, we can come back to it. But you'd asked, another thing that came to my mind over the last year is a lot of people have been renting out parts of their home, or maybe another condo that they have somewhere on a short-term rental basis. Airbnb and VRBO has become extremely popular. both in terms of ourselves going to use places, but also homeowners renting out, as I say, extra spaces like that. And one of the things I found is that sometimes homeowners don't think that there's a difference, whether they have just their general home insurance or whether they need to do anything if they're going to rent out part of their space. And it's so critical that they do that. And I know you've probably talked to some of your clients about this, but the issue is that insurance companies treat a property differently, whether it's owner occupied or whether it's rented out. And they also treat it differently if it's rented out on a long-term lease basis versus on a short-term basis, for weekends or weeks, what we call short-term rentals. Again, think Airbnb or VRBO. And again, it can all be handled. It's just that you need to let your insurance company know, because if you don't have it set properly, I hate to say it, but you should be prepared that if there's a claim, it might be denied. And that's the last thing that, homeowner wants to hear, or I want to hear, is to go back to a client and say, well, geez, I'm sorry, we didn't know you were renting out your home, and therefore, the claim can't be covered. So again, not a big deal, but just communicate with your insurance agent or your insurance company, or run it by your realtor to find out whether you should do anything special. And it's really important, Joe.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I think of that item as kind of like, talking to your insurance agent is sort of like, there should be like an insurance hygiene thing, right? Like you go in and your car needs an oil change, you get that done. It's just, you're making moves, you're buying homes, you're renting parts out, you're doing things. You should always just reach out, every 3 to 6 months or something like that, at least. Or if a major life event happens, to your insurance agent, and just tell them what's going on and say, am I covered, in all these situations? And you should always be very, very honest about that. So
I mean, to your point, there is I'll give you one sort of self promo bit, which is that we strongly encourage clients to have a short review at least once a year. And you probably get that call from my office or reach out, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be bothered by it. Nothing's changed, and that's okay. Maybe nothing has changed on your end, but it doesn't have to be long. It can just be a short check-in. I think there probably aren't many people that would buy, as an example of why you should reach out if there's a major life event. Like if you're getting married and you buy a $20,000 engagement ring for your spouse, most people probably would think, oh, maybe I should get this insured. And again, reach out to your insurance company or insurance agent, take care of that. In the same sense, if you're making another change and you're going to rent out your house or rent out your condo, talk to your insurance agent. It's a change, and maybe they don't have to do anything. Maybe they do, but at least you've talked to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, a lot of people I notice are, renting out or trying and doing Airbnb as well. Mm-hmm. And even though there's a lot of Airbnb laws and regulations, they're actually made for people to do just that. Yeah. Whereas a lot of municipalities and areas are, making regulations to prevent people from renting out whole units or houses or buildings. Right. They, continue to allow people to be able to supplement their income, be able to afford their home, and right. in order and be able to run a little small kind of bed and breakfast type of thing from their own house. Yeah. So, I think with all the regulations that's come in and all the things that are going on, I think that is, definitely at least that portion of it is here to stay. Yeah. So as people do that, they should definitely make sure, because most people won't think like, wait, my insurance company won't cover me in the same way if, this short-term tenant that's there for only 4 days throws a big party and destroys the house while I'm gone for 2 days. Exactly. So, and that starts a fire. Well, they say, hey, you didn't tell us that you're doing short-term rentals and there's a risk of that. So, we would have priced that accordingly.
Exactly.
And then people will get mad at the insurance company and say, wow, you're evil and you're just denying my claim. Well, I mean, it's a business, and what would you do? You want to know what you're insuring. And so, it makes total sense to me. Yeah. Cool. Your next point you were going to talk about.
Yeah, there was one other thing that I had thought of that I thought I would share with your listeners and viewers. And that has to do with we've noticed that with this whole pandemic environment and people being restricted to their homes and not being able to spend money on a lot of things they used to spend money on, like travel and so on, they're kind of stuck in their home and like, okay, well, what can we do around our house, right? And so we find a lot of remodel projects going on where people are like doing these projects that they've dreamed about for years. So maybe they're remodeling their home, or they're building a wine cellar, or they're adding a second story, or they're adding an extra, bathroom to their house. And one of the things, if they're going to do this, they again should talk to their insurance agent and or their contractor and or their realtor like you, just to find out if they need to do anything special. If you're doing minor work, like say putting in hardwood floors or painting or putting in cabinets, replacing your kitchen cabinets, that's probably not really an issue that you have to deal with. But if you're going to add a second story to your home, or if you're doing a major remodel of basically, almost tearing down to one wall and then rebuilding, or let's say you're adding an extra bathroom onto the home, or another 200 or 300 square feet for something. At that point, two things come into play. One, you might want to make sure you talk to your contractor about who's covering all that work. In the insurance world, we call that course of construction, right? There's construction going on, or sometimes it might go by the words builder's risk. There's building going on and there's a risk involved there. So you might want to talk to them to see who's actually insuring that, and just talk to your home insurance company to see if they're going to take care of it too. That's number one. Number two, if you're doing this work, guess what? You've probably increased the value of your home, right? Not only for sale purposes, but also for rebuilding purposes. And God forbid, at the end of all this, there was a fire. You want to make sure that all this nice work you've done is actually insured and covered. Okay. So again, whether you need the builder's risk or course of construction, maybe not. Talk to your contractor, talk to your insurance agent about it. But at the very least, if there's been an increase in your home value because of the work that you've been doing, right, you probably want to reflect that in the amount of coverage on your home. And again, that's just simply protecting yourself and all this money you've invested. Talk to your insurance agent and let them know what you've done, and they'll give you their best advice on what you should do.
Got it. So again, that goes back to the insurance hygiene thing of, basically anytime you're doing anything kind of major or different or making moves or doing something as it relates to your property or anything as it relates to your
Sure.
anything you have that's valuable, right? That you want insurance for, you should just reach out to your insurance agent and say, what should I be thinking about? And what I really like about you is that you're always on the pulse. You're always thinking about these things, and you do always have something valuable to share and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. Obviously, not everybody is like that. So, I feel that one thing is people should be responsible whenever they do things and reach out to their insurance agent. But I hope that they have an insurance agent like yourself, or if they don't, then they should reach out to you or somebody like you who is proactive and who can think about all the potential risks and issues involved. And at the end of the day, the increased cost of insurance to cover these things is negligible. It's tiny,
right?
But it is a huge difference if, as they say, S hits the fan. So, it's a big, if you're adding an additional, $17 a month, if that, probably, not oftentimes that even that much, in order to ensure everything properly, and then something does happen, you're going to be very grateful that you did that and took the time, took the extra 5-10 minutes to make the phone call, paid the extra $17 a month for however long you did. And now you're covered. And now one of your life's most valuable assets is taken care of.
It's so true, Joe. So I've been an agent 20 years now, this January, representing farmers. And in that time, I have had 3 clients that have experienced big fires. One was in the San Bruno gas explosion. The entire house burned down. Clients were safe, but we had an entire home that had to be rebuilt. And then there were two other cases. One was almost entire burn down, and the other was about half of a burned down home. And you're right, having the coverage is so critical. In all three cases, fortunately, we did our jobs right along with the client. It was a group effort that they had the proper coverage ahead of time, so that when all was said and done, we were able to put them back in a, basically a brand new home with everything taken care of, and all they were out of pocket was their deductible. And it's a good feeling when you know you've done your job correctly like that. And so, to be able to share this type of information with your clients, thank you for giving me that privilege. And happy they don't have to work with us. Even if they just want to run a question by us, have them give me or my staff a call. All my staff are licensed, and we'd be happy to answer any questions they have.
Perfect. I really appreciate that. Thanks again for hopping on, taking the time to do this, and looking forward to the next one.
Great. Thanks for your time, Joe. Really appreciate it.